The Scramble for Africa was a rapid and ruthless territorial expansion struggle by European powers where they seized, colonized, and exploited Africa's resources in the late 19th century. This happened for roughly 100 years between 1881 and 1990, which was the time when most African countries had achieved their independence from their colonial rulers. Between 1881 and 1914, all of Africa except Ethiopia and Liberia fell under European control. But what caused this crazy European annexation of an entire continent, along with its resources? The first Europeans to make contact with the African continent was the Kingdom of Portugal, who edged their way around the African coast in the 15th century to enter South Africa. Soon, other European countries would discover what the Portuguese had found. Africa was home to vast riches: gold, diamonds, ivory, rubber, all of which were essential raw materials that European countries needed to fuel their industries. But there was more to it than resources. Nationalism was sweeping through Europe, with countries competing to build empires. The Industrial Revolution created a hunger for markets, and Africa seemed like the perfect place for Europeans to secure both wealth and influence. Africa, of course, was not an empty land. It had powerful kingdoms, complex societies of diverse tribes and languages, and rich cultures. However, European advances in weaponry such as the Maxim gun gave colonizers an overwhelming military advantage. By 1880, the Scramble for Africa was already in full swing, and it somehow led to fierce territorial disputes between Great Britain and France. So, at the request of Leopold II of Belgium, Otto von Bismarck, Germany's first chancellor, called for the Berlin Conference of 1884 to 1885. European powers who had interests in Africa gathered at this conference to decide how to carve up Africa. The countries represented at the Berlin Conference were Austria-Hungary, Belgium, Denmark, France, Germany, Great Britain, Italy, the Netherlands, Portugal, Russia, Spain, the kingdoms of Sweden, Norway, Turkey, and the United States of America. Not a single African leader was invited. An entire continent was divided up without consulting any of its people. To them, Africa was incapable of leading itself, and they, the Europeans, must bring civilization and Christianity to the continent. But it was all a facade. The main and clear goal was to annex these territories and establish effective occupation that allowed them to move African resources to Europe. The conference opened on the 15th of November 1884 and closed on the 26th of February 1885 with the signing of the General Act of the Berlin Conference. A major outcome of the conference was arbitrary borders that ignored ethnic, cultural, and linguistic boundaries, setting the stage for future conflicts that continue to impact Africa today. Once the land grab began, European nations rushed to establish control. France took large parts of West Africa, Britain also took part of West Africa and expanded into southern and eastern Africa, while Belgium claimed the Congo, a region that would witness some of the worst colonial atrocities under King Leopold II's brutal regime. Portugal took Mozambique in the east and Angola in the west. However, Italy took Somalia after it drove out British troops in 1940, as well as occupied a portion of Ethiopia from 1935 to 1941. Germany took Namibia, also known as German Southwest Africa, and Tanzania, which was then called German East Africa. Spain claimed the smallest territory, Equatorial Guinea or Rio Muni. Between the 50s and 90s, all African countries reclaimed their independence, but the Scramble for Africa left a lasting mark. Colonial rule disrupted traditional systems, imposed foreign languages, and extracted resources on a massive scale. Millions of Africans were forced into labor and subjected to violence and oppression. Even after decolonization in the mid-20th century, Africa's artificial borders and colonial legacies have continued to fuel conflicts and political instability. African countries who could manage are trying to rewrite their history. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share your thoughts, and subscribe so we can create more videos like this.